Now let's look at the next property, the commutative property. The way that I remember the commutative property is I think of the root word commute. And when I watch the news in the morning, there's always somebody there talking about the traffic, talking about the commute to work. That means you're moving from one place to another. You're moving from home to work. So that's what I think of the commutative property, because with the commutative property, you can multiply two factors in any order and get the same product. That means you can move them in a different place, from one place to another, kind of like traveling from your home to work. In this example, we have 2 rows of 3 birds, or 2 groups of 3. It could be written like this, and it's shown like this. We have 2 groups of 3. Now, if we switch those numbers around and made them move to another place, we would have 3 times 2, or 3 rows of 2 birds, or 3 groups of 2. The picture looks different, but it's the same number of birds and the same value. We have 6 birds when we have 2 rows of 3 birds. We also have 6 birds when we have 3 rows of 2 birds. Now let's take a look at this expression. We have 5 groups of 4. So I'm going to draw my 5 rows with 4 in each row. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So there's 2 rows of 4, or 2 groups of 4. 3 groups of 4. Now I have 4 groups of 4. And 5 groups of 4. Now with the commutative property, I can also represent this as 4 groups of 5. Now the value of 5 groups of 4 is 20. If I counted every single one of these squares I just drew, that would be 20. With 4 groups of 5, I'm going to have 4 groups, but this time there's going to be 5 in each row. So that's 1 group of 5, 2 groups of 5, 3 groups of 5, and 4 groups of 5. If I count all of these, I'm still going to have 20. So because of the commutative property, I'm going to get the same product or the same value if I multiply the factors in a different order. Now the last property we're going to look at is the associative property. The root word of the associative property is associate. When you associate with somebody, you hang out with them, or you're friends with them. Now, with the associative property, we're going to group numbers and associate them with one another using parentheses. Let's look at what it says about the associative property of multiplication. You can group factors in different ways and get the same product. Use parentheses to group the factors you multiply first. Okay, this is very important. In math, whatever you see in parentheses is what you do first. So let's look at this situation here. We have this expression, 4 times 2 is in parentheses first, and then we have that value times 3. We can think of this as 4 groups of 2 dog biscuits. That's the 4 times 2. Do you see 4 groups of 2 dog biscuits here? We've got 1 group, 2 group, 3 groups, 4 groups. So there's 4 groups of 2 dog biscuits 3 times, and that's what this larger circle represents, or the larger oval that's around it here. We've got this amount, 4 groups of 2 dog biscuits, 3 times. Now if we counted all these, we would have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. That gives us a value of 24. Now what if we move these parentheses? Instead of being around the 4 and the 2, we wrote it again with the parentheses around the 2 and the 3. Now we would read this as 4 times 2 groups of 3 dog biscuits. 4 times 2 groups of 3 dog biscuits. So this is what we think about first, whatever's in parentheses. So 2 groups of 3, if you look here, we've got 1 group of 3 dog biscuits and another group of 3 dog biscuits. That's 2 groups of 3 dog biscuits. And we have that amount 4 times. So here is 1 group of 2 groups of 3 dog biscuits. There's another one. There's a third, and there's a 4th group of 2 groups of 3 dog biscuits. So if we count these dog biscuits, we can see that there's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. We still have the same number of dog biscuits. They're just grouped a little differently depending on where we put our parentheses. That's the associative property of multiplication. Now let's look at that one with this expression here. For the first one, let's group our 6 and our 2. We'll associate them together. So the words that I would write for this would be 6 groups of 2, 1 time. So I'm going to make 6 groups of 2. So I'm going to draw 6 groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I have 6 groups of 2. So I'm going to put 2 in each group. And how many times do I have 6 groups of 2? Just 1 time. So I can see here that the value of 6 groups of 2 1 time is going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. The value is going to be 12. Now what would that picture look like if I did this, use the same numbers, but this time I associated 2 groups of 1? Now I would write this as 6 times 2 groups of 1. So I'm going to just start with 2 groups with 1 in each group. Okay? And I'm going to have this amount 6 times. So there's 1. And I have to have 2 groups and 1 in each group. 2. There's 2 times 2 groups of 1. There's 2 groups and 1 in each group. Now I have it 3 times. There's 4. There's 5 times 2 groups of 1. And there's 6 times 2 groups of 1. And that value is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So again, I get the same product when I associate different numbers with multiplication.